Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game from round 7 of the FIDE Candidates Tournament 2022. It's a game that pretty much everyone that was commenting on the game proclaimed a draw very early on, because the position that happened on the board was in fact an objective draw. It was an incredible preparation by Nepomniachtchi, who employed the Petrov defense to secure just a very early draw. And when I say draw, I mean a 0.00 draw with an engine evaluation. But Rapport decided to push, even though he knew that he was probably going into some extreme preparation. So it's a wonderful game, and it really shows the will Rapport had to play on, even though he didn't want to squander the white pieces. He just wanted to make some use of them from a really difficult position, as you'll see, like I said, very early on. So Rapport with the white pieces opens with e4. We have e5 by Nepo, knight to f3, Nepo goes for knight to f6, the Petrov defense, knight captures on e5 and d6, knight back to f3, so nothing out of the ordinary, knight captures, d4 and d5, we have bishop to d3 and bishop to d6, castles, and Nepo also castles, so this is the martial variation of the classical attack of the Petrov, c4, c6, and now the usual ideas here are knight to c3, queen to c2, putting more pressure on the knight, is also played, c captures on d5 is a known move, and there are a couple of moves that are somewhat rarer, but the queen to b3, the move Rapport plays, is incredibly rare. Well, this is what he prepared for Nepo here. But Nepo not very impressed. He immediately plays bishop to g4. He says, alright, go after your b7 pawn. I'm just gonna grab the knight on f3, and that's it. And this would really be terrible for Rapport if he goes for this. If queen captures, bishop captures, and queen captures on a8, then you have a forced checkmate. Bishop captures on h5, king captures, queen to h4 with check, king g1, and now queen g4 will be checkmate. So obviously you don't want to do that. So instead we have bishop captures on e4. There are a couple of other games. For example, knight b to d2 is a known move. Nigel Short defeated Hari Krishna with this idea, but bishop captures on e4 is a new move. So now already as of move 10 we have a completely new game, which is incredible in itself, as this is the Petrov. So here d captures on e4, and now knight to g5, and now what can Nepo do here? Well, he just goes bishop back to e7. He wants to get rid of this knight, and he says, well, just move it. So knight captures on e4, Rapport grabs the e4 pawn, and Nepo plays queen captures on d4. But now, obviously, queen captures on b7 is happening, and this is pretty much where everyone thought, okay, it's a draw, because we all see what's happening. It's going to be a forced bishop sacrifice, and that's it. So queen captures on b7, queen captures on e4, Rapport plays the strongest move, but it's just not a very promising one. Queen captures on a8, and now Nepo goes for bishop to h3. Threatening checkmate already on move 15, and there is no other move. You have to capture on h3, otherwise you can just forget about it. So g captures on h3, queen to g6 check, king to h1, and queen to e4 with check. And here Nepo is saying, okay, this is what I have against this. If king g1, we're just going to repeat. We call it a day. We didn't spend all that much time. We prepare for the other half of the candidates tournament. But here Rapport went into a very deep think for some half an hour long, and for the other moves another half an hour. So basically, to decide whether he wants to continue the game or whether he wants to repeat, he spent about an hour. And since I forgot to show it to you in the beginning, here is just a nice photo of the two of them before the actual game. There you have it, this gentleman making the first move. If any of you guys know who it is, do share in the comments so we can learn as well. And as usual, if you notice anything weird about the photo, also do mention in the comments, as I very much enjoy such findings. Now getting back to the position, after queen to e4 check, king to g1, a repetition, queen to g6 check, king to h1, and queen to e4 check. And here Rapport did not play king to g1. Instead, he played pawn to f3. And now, what do you play here? it's again, Nepo has to play a series of only moves in order to just survive this, because if queen captures on c4, which seems like a pretty good idea, you're gonna play king to g2. You have to defend the rook here, and now after, let's say, bishop c5, you're gonna play knight to c3, and after queen to a6, hoping to trap the white queen here, because that's kind of black's plan. After giving up this rook, the queen has no way of exiting. You want to play knight to d7 and win the white queen. There's the tricky rook to e1. This is how white wins. And now after knight d7, there's rook to e8, and now white is just winning. So you have to defend against this. So instead, queen to d3. Now the idea is that we are attacking the rook, and if king to g2, we're gonna play queen to g6. And this is the other part where Rapport really had to decide whether he wanted to continue, and he spent an additional half an hour. Does he want to just repeat with king g2, queen g6, king back to h1, queen to d3, or he wants to play something else? So here we have king to g2, queen to g6, repeating once, king to h1, queen to d3, and now he doesn't go for this, but rather knight to d2. And here Rapport is saying, I know I'm going into your preparation, but I cannot just squander the white pieces like this. I have to at least try, even though it comes with the price of a queen sacrifice. So here we have queen to d7. This is the only move. We have to prevent the white queen from escaping via the b7 square. So queen to d7, and now we have knight to e4 by Rapport. And this is a very nice idea, guarding the d6 square. Also, the bishop is coming to f4 or e3, and we are saying, well, at some point we will move the knight, and you will not have any square for your queen. So knight to a6, attacking the queen. This is what Nepo goes for, and now you have to give up the queen. There is no other way, and this is what Rapport plays. Queen captures on f8, so grabbing the other rook as well, and this is basically the first moment in the game where Nepo started thinking. He had to recall whether bishop captures on f8 or king captures on f8 was the correct idea, because he probably thought that even though he checked this position, and there's no way this position happens in a candidates tournament, because who would be so interested in playing a position like this? I mean, who would be crazy enough to go into this? But Rapport would, and so this is the first moment that where Nepo has to consider. So obviously you could capture with the king. He captures with the bishop. The king here is just a bit awkward. You never want your king and your bishop like this. Then if you receive some sort of a back rank check, then you always have to give up the bishop, and so on. It just looks weird. So instead, bishop captures on f8, and now we have bishop to f4. You have to develop the bishop somehow. Bishop to e3, bishop to f4. So bishop to e3 also makes sense as it regards the c5 square, so it really makes it hard for this knight to enter the game. But he goes for bishop to f4. He wants to play bishop to g3, so after Nepo captures on h3, he doesn't have to have the rook on f1 to defend the f3 pawn. And okay, Nepo goes for the h3 pawn, rook 8 to d1. Now he wants to play rook 8 to d8 to put pressure on this bishop. If he can get rook 8 to d8 and bishop to d6, then he doesn't have to worry about anything anymore. So pawn to h6, making a little bit of breathing room for the king here. And now comes bishop to g3. And this is the first moment where things start to go wrong for Rapport. Here, a3 is a much needed move, because you know that Nepo's playing knight to c5, and this just allows you to really minimize the power of the dark square bishop currently placed on f8, because here the bishop isn't doing all that much. If Nepo activates it, then it's a problem. And here the knight to c5 line, which is pretty much the best thing Nepo has, runs into b4. That's the problem. And now after the bishop moves, we play c5. We don't allow black to mess up our pawn structure here. And now the bishop is not as useful, and it's a very, very tricky position. For example, g5, you play bishop to d6, and all of a sudden you have nothing to worry about. Black can't trade because you get a beautiful pass pawn. If black just moves the bishop, let's say bishop f6, then Rapport can even break through with b5. If captures, then the c pawn starts marching forward again, made possible by the pawn being on b4. Make no mistake, mistake there. So after this h6, Rapport went for bishop to g3 instead, and now you don't have this luxury of playing b4 as you have not prepared it with a3. So Nepo quickly plays knight to c5, and now it's a little bit different. You can't trade. The problem is, after you trade now, the bishop here is just too powerful. You don't have time to kick it away. For example, if a3, we play a5. Good luck playing b4 for the rest of the game. And now let's say rook to d8 check. You can make some threats here. Let's say rook f to d1. Now h5 with h4 coming. And it's just much, much worse. It is completely winning for Nepo. So this is not what you can do here. So instead, rook f to e1 by Rapport. And now Nepo goes for knight to e6. You could also trade here. That's also possible. For example, you trade captures, and you play g5. There's also nothing wrong with that. But Nepo goes for a very, very different idea. Knight to e6. We have a3 now with b4 and c5 in mind. And now h5. Of course, Nepo wants to play h4. We have rook to d3, trying to bait Nepo into playing h4 because this defends it with a tactic. If you play h4 now, then knight f2 attacks the queen, and the rook defends the pawn. So once you move the queen, the pawn is defended, and you can just gobble up the h4 pawn. So there's that. So Nepo doesn't fall for this. He plays queen to f5. The situation on the clock, 30 minutes for Rapport and an hour and 21 minutes for Nepo. So really enjoying his time there. And now finally Rapport plays pawn to b4. It's there really isn't a better move in the position. Only here pretty much every move is winning for Nepo, but you have to find one very particular idea that wins the game. So feel free to pause the video and to win this incredible game for Jan Nepomniachtchi while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible pawn sacrifice. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is of course pawn to h4. That's the good stuff. And now you don't really have an option here. You can't move the bishop, and you can't really capture on h4, or rather, you have to place one of those two options. If you capture here, it's nothing good. Just knight to f4 attacks the rook, and now the knight has all sorts of nasty discoveries. For example, if you play a rook d to e3 to still keep an eye on the f3 pawn, we can just play queen h3, and now we're threatening the bishop and also threatening checkmate. So this is resigns. And if you move the rook somewhere else, let's say you try rook to d4, it's not much better. We're gonna play knight to g6 now, attack the bishop with the knight. Also, we're attacking the f3 pawn because now the rook doesn't defend the pawn, and no problems there whatsoever. So that's what happens if you actually capture this pawn. So what can Rapport do? Well, he plays bishop back to b8. Maybe he can grab the a7 pawn, and then he can start marching his own passed pawns forward. But now just knight to g5 by Nepo. Sorry, not knight to g5. Not knight to g5 by Rapport. Knight to g5 by Nepo. He could improve on the position further with c5, but he goes for knight to g5 right away. And now we have rook d to e3. The only way to kind of continue playing is rook e to e3, but it's such an ugly move to make. Yes, you are defending the f3 pawn twice, but still just knight captures here, rook captures, and now h3. This is just disgusting to even look at for white. However, maybe with perfect play, maybe one could hold this, but after rook d to e3, now there is nothing. Now, okay, the f3 pawn still cannot be captured. If you capture this, it would be a pretty big blunder. We just play rook to f1, and now you really don't have anything better than to go after the bishop. Rook captures on f3, queen captures here, and rook captures on f7. This is now something white will very likely hold to a draw. But after knight captures on e4, now Rapport realizes that there is no more holding this. F captures on e4, queen to f2 now, a beautiful move, preventing rooks from doing anything, because if you attack the queen with this rook, this is checkmate, and if you attack the queen with this rook, it's not much better. Just queen f3 check, king g1, h3, and well, this is a light square. Good luck defending this. You have a dark square bishop, your rooks can't really move anywhere. It's just incredibly ugly to even look at. I have to say it like that. So after queen to f2, we have h3, not allowing Nepo to push h3, and now just bishop to e7. Now we have all the time in the world to activate this bishop, and we will do that via the e7 and g5 squares. So bishop to h2, Now we're trying to kick away the queen with bishop g1, but still bishop g5. We have bishop to g1, queen to d2, and now, again, what do you play? You have to play something. Your rook is hanging. If you go after the queen here, then we play queen to c1. And again, your rook is hanging, the c4 pawn is hanging. There's just no good way to play this. If you can, there's really nothing to do. You're gonna have to attack the queen one more time. Then we capture on c4, and then once your pawn starts falling, there's just not all that much you can do. It's a sad position. So instead, rook 3 to e2 was played, attacking Nepo's queen this way, but now just queen to d3. And here, Rapport has 4 minutes on the clock, Nepo has over an hour, and here we can even check a nice photo of this moment. Here you can see Nepo circling Rapport like a a vulture circling his prey. Very, very nicely done there. The two of them just, Nepo leading the tournament, Rapport trying to get anything but a draw in this tournament, and here he overpushed a little bit with the white pieces, but you just don't want to be shut down like that right out of the opening. So here, again, not much to do. The h3 pawn is hanging. If you play king here, then we just deliver queen g3 check and then pick up the pawn. So bishop e3, pretty much only thing left, and now Nepo doesn't even go for queen captures on e4 with check, because that would kind of put his queen into some line of fire. We can even show it, for example, if this check, king g1, now we're going to play bishop to f6, there's bishop captures on a7, we attack the queen, we create some passed pawns here, and okay, queen captures on c4, the game continues. Nepo will win this position, but he doesn't even allow this. He plays bishop to f6, and Rapport is without a move pretty much. He plays bishop captures on a7, but now queen captures on h3 with check, king to g1, we have queen to g3, king to f1, and pawn to h3. We have bishop back to g1, stopping pawn to h2, but now just bishop to h4, and he was in this position on move 43 after reaching time control that Richard Rapport resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So Jan went into the round 7 as the leader of the Candidates Tournament, and he finishes round 7 as the leader of the Candidates Tournament. So it pretty much depends how other players will finish their games, but so far Nepo is leading by a full point and a half. So even if Fabi wins his game, Nepo will still be leading by half a point. So definitely nicely done going into the second half of the tournament. We're going to cover the other games and check out what happened there as well. But in case you're wondering why this is resigns, what do you play here? You have to play something that doesn't really matter. If you play any move, then the threat is just queen to f3 check. There's no defending this. If you block with the bishop, this is checkmate. If you block with the rook, it's not much better. We just capture here, captures, bishop captures h2. We promote the pawn on the next move. It's going to be checkmate. And if you don't play something like c5, yeah, you could play some like rook to f2. Doesn't really matter. Still just h2 with check. And now you either capture with the bishop, then we capture here with checkmate, or you capture with the rook, then we capture here. You have to go to g2. I mean, it's the queen captures on e4. Impossible to play this with white. It will be resigns very soon. So yeah, after queen to h4, Rapport agrees that there is no point continuing this, and he resigned in this position. So incredible game where, as you can see very early on, like I said, everyone agreed that this was just going to be, after queen captures on b7, a very quick draw, because, well, of course, bishop h3, and we call it a draw. But Rapport did not want a 15-move draw with the white pieces. He went into a deep thing, spent over an hour, and well, tried to sacrifice his queen for some sort of an attack. And if Nepo did not have everything absolutely prepared, but he just played the moves instantly, and he knew exactly what to do. So it was there was no possibility that this would go in Rapport's way in any scenario. In case someone asks you what happened in the game and you want to explain it to them in like one sentence, that's what happened. So yeah, once again, really hope you guys enjoyed that. Very commendable by Rapport for going for it, but he makes it much harder for him and the other players to catch up to Nepo, who is definitely snowballing the candidate so far. So yeah, once again, I really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Sofia, and I would like to thank Hans Anderson, Amarillo Accounting, Spanish accountant in UK, Jacob Gonzalez, and Stephen McNeil for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the candidates until it finishes. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.